Actually, what does mean by the IMF program? Essentially, IMF stops Pakistan's economy growing. Well, agriculture makes about 24% of Pakistan's economy, and these changes will be implemented from January next year. Why January next year? Why not now? At Pakistan's total external financing requirement for the new financial year, it is somewhere between 22 to 25 billion dollar, depending upon the amount of imports that Pakistan will allow the external finances position, and then the situation will remain the same for the next two financial years. So $7 billion for 3 years period is frankly nothing. What it will do for Pakistan is that it will provide the umbrella under which Pakistan will be able to get more loans from the World Bank, from the Asian Development Bank, from some other bilateral creditors. And if the credit rating agencies improve Pakistan's current very low rating, then it may be able to borrow from the international capital markets. So on an average, Pakistan's external financing needs range between $65 billion to $75 billion over a period of 3 years, and the IMF will be chipping in only $7 billion. Pakistan's desire was that it should get at least $8.5 billion, but given the already exposure to the IMF program, the lending that Pakistan had taken from the IMF, and the quota limitations, the IMF offered at best $7 billion. But this will also carry huge cost for the citizens. I wouldn't call it the cost for the government, because the government is not paying any cost now. There are about 2 to 3 types of conditions that every program has, including the prior actions. And under the prior actions, we have seen up to 7 rupees or 7 rupees 12 paisa per unit increase in the electricity prices. Then a budget that has hit every household in Pakistan, irrespective it is poor household or the richest one. Everyone is affected by this new budget. This was part of the prior conditions of the IMF. Then we will have some kind of continuous conditions, which we call, the IMF calls it the performance criteria, that will involve monitoring of the budget and the foreign exchange position and the net international reserve. Then there's a third phase of conditions which we call the structural benchmarks. These are the conditions that initially appear soft, because these have some timelines and some time to be left in implementation of those conditions. But eventually these structural benchmarks eventually turn into either prior actions or the performance criteria. So if we talk now, some of these conditions are like imposition of up to 45% income tax rate on the agriculture income. Then we have a condition signing of National Fiscal Pact. Then there's a condition that under another condition, the government will rewrite its Pakistan Sovereign Wealth Fund Act, meaning thereby that the fund will be more open, more transparent, and it would not be allowed to sell the state assets to foreign nations without competitive bidding. Then Pakistan has also promised that it would not give any kind of preferential tax treatment or any guaranteed returns under the umbrella of the Special Investment Facilitation Council. So if you look at the numbers of conditions and the areas that these conditions cover, it is almost touching every important area of Pakistan's economy and the household. This sustainable development is an interesting jargon that you will find in every IMF program and every handout that IMF issues with regard to Pakistan. It is more of a bookish thing now. On the face of it, it's a quite good thing. Like the mean of what does mean by this sustainable development? It means that whatever the growth rate will be, it will be consistent, and we will not have boom and bust cycles that Pakistan's economy has. Sometimes it grows by 6% in a year, then the next year it is 2%, 3%, and then we have a external financing crisis. So it means that Pakistan's economic conditions will improve, and once those conditions are in place, Pakistan's economy can grow at a sustainable way and with more inclusive face. But that is the good part of this jargon. Actually, what does mean by the IMF program? Essentially, IMF stops Pakistan's economy growing. It is basically a stabilization program, and stabilization has been achieved and will be achieved by choking everything. The IMF, with the help of the government of Pakistan, it will slow down everything. The interest rate of earlier it was 22% or 20.5%, despite we have an inflation rate of around 12% on yearly basis, headline inflation rate. 21% is if it is the interest rate set by the central bank. The commercial bank will lend around 23%, 24% to the consumers, to the private consumers. That too, if some money is left behind after massive government borrowings. So that would not allow Pakistan's economy, the industrial sector, to grow. There are also checks on the consumer financing. There are also checks on the imports, because we don't have the reserves to finance those imports. And when the imports will be hurt, your services sector will also be hurt. The wholesale sector will be hurt. The only hope remains then the agriculture sector. As you know, the agriculture sector has already grown at a pace of 6% last year. That too, mainly because there was a low base in the previous year, because of the floods. We have achieved the maximum wheat output at 31.4 million tons. There is no hope that this year we will be achieving that high production because of the couple of factors: the weather condition, and more importantly, the withdrawal of the wheat export policy. So when we conclude this discussion, it means that Pakistan's economy will not be growing more than 3.5%, and that is not sustainable as long as we are in the IMF program. They have choked everything. They have slowed it down, and it will remain like this. When the IMF program will end, then we will have another bust or the boom cycle in shape of some higher growth, and we'll again be going back. The core area where we need to focus, and we have not been focusing, is the loss of productivity of Pakistan's economy. And that is not the focus of the IMF area. And frankly, the things that IMF calls reforms are not reforms. Increasing electricity prices to reduce the circular debt over a period of time is not the reform, which the IMF and the government calls a reform. It has pushed Pakistanis to a point where they have started going off the national grid, and they are relying more on the solar option. So, and this will keep happening. And when it comes to privatization, again, IMF says that your loss-making entities, you will have to privatize them. But the program says you will sell your profitable entities first. So loss-making entities will still be there. So there are very nice jargons in the IMF press release and the IMF program documents, but most of these things are on the surface. And that is the reason, despite being in the IMF program for the 24th time, Pakistan's structural problems remain as they are. Well, agriculture makes about 24% of Pakistan's economy, and its contribution in the taxes is not even 0.1%. So that is the dichotomy, and the burden is being shared by other classes, particularly the salaried class. And this is because of the reason that under the constitution, the federal government cannot tax the agriculture income. It's a provincial subject. Even IMF is asking to impose standard business income tax rates on the agriculture income. This will be done by the provincial governments. And right now, the agriculture income tax rates by the provinces are set at very, very low level. Up to rupees 1.2 million annual income is exempted from any kind of tax. Then if your income is above 1.2 million but up to 2.4 million per annum, that means 200,000 per month, you will be paying only 5% tax, and from 2.5 million to 4.8 million per annum, you will be paying 10% of the income tax. And if the income crosses 4.8 million in a year, the current rate is 15%. Now the IMF is asking to align these rates with the non-business individual and personal income tax rate, which ranges between 35% to 45%, the max slabs. It's a condition that should have been implemented in this budget. But as I say, there are so many things that often remain on the papers. Now the IMF condition is that the agriculture income tax rate will be rationalized by all the legal changes will be made by end of October this year, and these changes will be implemented from January next year. Why January next year? Why not now? And we know that Sindh government has some reservation against this tax, although in principle it has agreed with the IMF that it will be changing these tax rates. President of Pakistan, Mr. Asif Ali Zardari, has publicly spoken against this tax. And his party, which is in bar influence of Sindh, has internally conveyed to the IMF that if they implemented this would be done in July next year. So let's hope it happens. But in principle, it's a good step, and the IMF should have done it much earlier, and it should have done in the budget of June 2024, which has not happened.